Like many parents, you may be looking at this image and thinking, there is no way this child is going to eat this vegetable. And it's important what we think when we see an image like this, because what we think influences our actions. And as a parent, our actions around how to influence our children's eating can influence their eating behaviors and their relationship with food for the rest of their lives. Today, I'm going to talk about 4 key myths about children's eating. I'm going to talk about the impact these myths have on parents' behavior, and I'm also going to talk about what actions or behaviors and beliefs we'd recommend instead. So the first myth is that kids are picky eaters. This is by far the most common concern I hear from parents. In fact, research has shown that approximately 60% of parents will identify their kids as a picky eater. And the story across these parents often looks very similar. They'll tell me that their child used to be a great eater. They ate everything. And then, at about the age of 2, they started to become picky, and now all the children eat is chicken fingers. What's interesting about that timeline is that at the age of 2 is also where kids start to have a sense of agency over the things that happen to them. Any of you who've raised a 2-year-old, this is when they start saying no. They say no to putting on their shoes, no to getting a seatbelt on, and they also start to say no to the foods we provide. And there's sort of 2 problematic ways that parents may respond to this new sense of agency around food. One of the problematic responses is sometimes parents start taking out those foods that they've rejected, right? And what happens is their diet ends up very narrow. They're only eating a few foods. And the concern there is there's no way their diet's going to be nutritionally adequate if they're only eating a few foods. The second problematic approach that parents sometimes take is, I'm going to make sure that child eats a diversity of foods. They're going to eat that food they don't want to. And they use a very authoritarian approach, and what can happen is then we end up with a battle of wills at every feeding interaction, and that's not enjoyable for anyone who's involved. Instead of these approach, we recommend a positive parenting approach that really respects the autonomy of the children. We often recommend Ellen Sater, who is a researcher in the US. We recommend her guidelines. And she suggests that parents are responsible for what, where, and when the food gets offered. And the kids are responsible for whether and how much they want to eat. We also recommend that parents continue to offer those foods that the kids have rejected. Even though they've told you you don't like it, if you keep offering it in a conflict-free manner that respects their autonomy, eventually they'll come back to us. That good eater you had as a little one will eventually broaden their intake, and that sort of good eater will come back to you. The second myth, and this is somewhat related to the first, is that healthy food does not taste good. If we hold this belief, we often end up doing things like bargaining with our children to eat their food. We'll say, you can have a cookie after you eat your carrots. And the problem with this kind of reward system for eating is kids that are fed that way will overvalue the cookie and undervalue the carrot. So instead of that approach, one of the things we recommend is that parents model their enjoyment of healthy food. Emma Haycraft, who's a UK-based researcher, has done a number of trials to show that when we get excited as parents for healthy eating, we say things like, oh, I love carrots, or these carrots are delicious, our kids are more likely to try and enjoy those foods. Another approach is to make sure that kids are food explorers, that really early in their life, we let them see the joy and enjoy how beautiful healthy food can be, the great smell, the great taste. And if we do this and let our kids be these food explorers, they can enjoy the pleasure and joy of healthy eating. And as we know, when we enjoy something, we're much more likely to continue the behavior. Our third myth is that family meals take a lot of work. The vast majority of the families we work with want to have family meals. They believe in the importance. They want to eat together with their children. But the number one barrier they identify is time, that it takes too much time, and so it's difficult for them to have family meals. And of course, if you believe that family meals need to be very grand, right? You need 3 courses and you need to make everything from scratch, it certainly seems a challenge in order to make a family meal. And this is similar to what Linda talked about, is sort of those high expectations of the foods we can prepare. And research definitely shows that when the kids that eat together with their families do have positive outcomes. They are more likely to have better dietary intake. And there are also psychosocial benefits. So kids that eat together with their families have lower rates of depression, improved school outcomes, and also lower rates of disordered eating. But the mechanisms by which we think this happened are varied. There's a few things. One is when we eat together, we have this opportunity to model our enjoyment of healthy eating. Also, eating together creates a ritual and routine within the family, and kids respond well to knowing what's expected in their home. Also, eating together is a great opportunity to connect and have communication. It's a great time to ask your kid, how was their day at school? Are there anything bothering them? It's a chance to connect and talk. And also, if we plan a meal, typically the foods we offer are much healthier than if we just sort of grab what's around. What's interesting about these benefits of family meals, however, is none of them require that we have a really complex, difficult meal to eat. In fact, we can get all those benefits with really simple dietary intake, right? Simple, healthy meals can have all those benefits. So we can have families have eggs, a whole grain toast, and tomatoes. Or as shown in this photo, families can share a whole grain cereal, some yogurt, and some fruit, right? And all those benefits and those opportunity to connect can still happen over simple food. And if something's simple, we're gonna be more likely to do it long term as well. And the fourth myth is that snacks are treats. So while parents may be concerned about the foods they offer during a meal, snacks, the nutritional quality doesn't matter so much. It's okay if they're treats. The problem with that is a third of kids' caloric intake comes from snack foods, and that the quality of those snack foods are typically quite poor. What we'd recommend instead, or one great way that we can make sure the kids eat nutritionally dense snack foods, is by creating a home environment that supports that. So this is Andre Agassi talked about the importance of making sure that the home supports healthful eating. So for example, making sure healthy foods are available. That means that you've brought them into the house. We also want to make sure they're accessible, and this means they're the easiest food to grab. So for example, do you have the hummus and the carrots up at the front of the fridge, so when they open up, that's what they see? Do you have a fruit bowl on the counter so it's easy for them to grab the snack? So we want to make sure that the environment supports this sort of access to healthy and enjoyable food as a way to reduce their risk of eating, or help them eat more healthy snack foods. I've had the great opportunity to work with Danone Institute International, and one of our projects focuses on nurturing healthy eating in children. Earlier this year, we published a journal article in the journal Appetite that goes into much more detail than I did today about some of these ways we can help nurture healthy eating and support families in doing that. And that is free, so you can access that if you're looking for more information. But in general, in this article, we really advocate that helping parents develop positive parenting interactions with their children around feeding that support children's autonomy, that sparking the joy and pleasure of healthy eating in children early in life, and helping families to eat together, and making sure that you can support families in creating a healthy home environment, and a piece of that, making sure all families have access to income to have that healthy home environment. With all of that together, we can help turn this into this. Thank you so much.